We are live.
Hello everyone, welcome to another Isotropix Live. My name is Eric Smith. I'm a technical artist at Isotropix. I'm sure I know some of you. And we have with us today Sam the Man and Nina.
Hey. So hey everyone.
It's awesome. So we got 46 people watching right now. I want to jump right into it. So let's let Nina give us a small rundown of what we will be looking at on our live event today. So Nina, take it away.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining and welcome, welcome. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what's going on. We're very excited to show you what we have in store today. So let's hop right into it. There we go. So obviously, this is the Clarice 5 Masterclass and another Isotropix Live. So on the agenda today, we have a Behind the Magic preview with a very talented artist, Aaron Sorensen. Very excited to show you this. He'll be joining us, answering some questions, showing you some of his magic. And then we'll have our full version coming out next week. And then I know everyone's very excited for this one. We've got a sneak peek of Angie with Sam. And then after that, Eric will wrap us up with a volume masterclass and a C5 Service Pack 3 update and showing you all the goodies that come with that. We'll have Q&As after each session, so make sure you are typing your questions in the chat and we'll select those and ask them at the end of each session. Just as a recap of the last service pack and what we're going to be showing you today, some of the exciting new features. You'll be seeing a little bit of all of this today. I'm very excited to show you that. And also with our last High Five event, we had a survey and we wanted to share some of the results with you. Obviously, the Battle of the Light was the highest rated presentation. People were very excited about the geolights and all that stuff. You guys asked to see more Clarice masterclasses. That's why we're here today and showing you more workflow stuff. We're happy to hear that you guys want to see us more often and do live events every month. And like I mentioned, the geolights and rendering, everyone's very pumped about that. So don't forget, we are doing a license giveaway, and in order to be registered for that, you need to go to live.isotropix.com to win a license, and we'll select some lucky winners there. So without further ado, let's get started.
All right. Hey, thanks, Nina. That was awesome. So yeah, like Nina said, we have a bunch of cool stuff coming up today. But right off the bat, let's talk about our community. One of the coolest things about Clarice is our extremely loud, funny, vibrant, and like really seriously talented community. So what I wanted to do today was bring an artist on here who is a little bit new to Clarice, but he is not new to making amazing images at all. So I'm not going to tell you his name. We're going to watch his demo reel first, and I have to be completely honest with you. When I first saw this, I got chills. The music, the visuals looks amazing. So buckle your seatbelts, watch this demo reel while I go find our next guest. Dude, welcome to the show, Aaron. How are you, man?
Doing good. How are you?
Dude, I'm shaking, man. I'm not kidding. I love that song. I searched it out. The editing, the visuals, that demo reel rocks. And what's cool is, I mean, that's not new work. That's that's a bit older work.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see what you're gonna show us later today. And I want to say that this is a small preview. We have our show Behind the Magic.
Yep.
And you're going to be having an episode in a couple weeks or next week, I believe, maybe. So we wanted to bring you on here. And so let's get started by just having you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in CG, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I've always been passionate about filmmaking, visual effects, anything that had to do with making magic. So I have been doing this since I was a young kid. And it has just progressed. The obsession has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And I've done, worked for companies full time. I've done freelance. I do lots of my own projects. I'm very passionate about, again, all things that have to do with filmmaking, visual effects. I've been a DP, so I used to film a lot. I've directed, lighting, all of it. So. But the one thing that I feel the most creatively satisfied doing is obviously visual effects. And so, I've been doing this for a long time. I worked at a company called The Void, which was really cool. We did virtual reality and got to work with Disney and Sony and a bunch of other companies and just had some cool opportunities in my career and just excited to be here and talk about the power of Clarice.
Yeah, so speaking of that, man, I mean, like I said, that demo reel's not new. The work is incredible. So I can't wait to see what you've been up to recently. So then my next question is, how did you first hear about Clarice and what were your, first impressions? How's it going? What is your impression?
Yeah, so the first time I heard about Clarice was from a coworker and we were talking about, I was hitting a wall and I was like, man, I just keep trying to make bigger and bigger scenes. And it just, kept hitting this wall. I couldn't get past it. And then he showed me behind the scenes for, I think, Star Wars or something. And he's like, have you heard of Clarice? I was like, no. And then he's like, check this out. And he was, you can scatter tons of geometry. And I'm like, what? And you didn't have to optimize as much. It wasn't hitting that wall that I kept hitting. And that got me so excited because then I felt like, okay, now I can be unleashed. Now I can run, And a lot of times I just would spend hours and hours and hours optimizing and trying to get things smaller and make things work. But with Clarice, I felt like my creative freedom was finally opened up and I could just go. And that was the most exciting thing. And so now I'm constantly just wanting to test and just keep throwing things at Clarice and see what it can handle. So I love spending as much time as I can in Clarice and just experimenting and building my own projects.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one thing I love about Clarice too, is that you just kind of throw things at it, right? And you end up kind of just experimenting, and the experiment ends up looking quite nice, and so that ends up becoming a little piece of art that you take further. I know I've seen you run into that same situation with some images of water on our Discord. So it's really great. So, we have a long format Behind the Magic coming up where we go into really deep dive into some stuff, but you had some new stuff that you wanted to show us here today. So I think that's pretty kick-ass, and I know everyone would love to see it. So I'm going to step out of the way and let you share your screen and just show us what you want to show us.
Sounds good. Okay, let's jump over into Clarice. So if you see right here, this is just a simple cloud scene that I've created. And this is something that environment artists are doing all the time. They're making clouds, or they need to make some type of volumetrics. And I found some tools that have been super helpful, and some techniques and things that I really like within Clarice. So yeah, this is just a scene that I created in some VDB clouds, and then just scattered them about to make this the sky. So the thing I love about Clarice is how well it plays with other software. So I like to personally use Houdini to create clouds and then bring them into here. And I love how well they play together. So I'm just going to quickly show how to create some clouds in Houdini and bring them over. So you create a geo node, and then if you create any shape, any geometry, you can turn it into a cloud. So we're just going to obviously use a simple sphere. And then you just drop down a cloud node, and voila, you have turned this sphere into voxels. And now it has, if I middle click, it has density attribute, and you can see how many voxels are within that. I always like to turn up the sampling a little bit more. And then you just add a cloud noise, and already you're getting a lot further. You're able to see that, okay, this thing's starting to come together. And there's just a lot of cool little attributes in here that you can use to make this look more realistic. One of them in the cloud node is the flatten. So you'll see this a lot with clouds. The bottom will be a little bit more flat. So we can just bring that up right there. And in the cloud noise, we can do what's called an up vector fall off. So this is just going to make it so that the noise is falling off a little bit more as well. So yeah, we can just start increasing it and playing with this and playing with these shapes. And it's really fast and intuitive to just kind of create something that looks pretty good quickly. So the other thing I like to do is you can start combining, you can just combine a bunch of different volumes together. There's another tool here in Houdini called the volume draw. Let me go, or volume paint node. So we can paint some fog. So I'm going to look at this, and this can paint on different planes. So we could do it on the XY. You can do it on Z. So you can start painting volumes as well. And the cool thing is that same cloud noise that we added on the other thing works on here as well. So you can start really customizing your volumes and creating some really stylized clouds if you need to. Like if you're working on like maybe a Dr. Seuss kind of looking clouds, you could draw it yourself. Then we can do a volume mix if we want to bring these two together. So if I just want to merge these together, we can do that. And now we have the volumes together, and you can start playing with the different mix methods as well. So once your clouds to a point where you like, you always need to just convert it into a VDB, because Clarice loves VDBs. So you just can do this convert VDB, and you want to make sure that it is set to a VDB. And again, you can middle click and see, okay, you saw your density attributes and everything looks good. So now it's in the right format, and we have this cloud that we like, and you just simply do a file cache. We can name this cloud 3. And we're just going to do a current frame. I'm going to delete all this stuff because we don't need frames, and we're going to name this a .vdb. Because again, Clarice likes the VDBs. I'm just going to hit save to disk. Now let's jump over into Clarice and bring that in. So we can just create a file and make sure it's a volume file as well. And then we just navigate to that file that we just created. So let me just find that folder. There it is. And if I double click, we should be able to see this. There it is. So there's our cloud that we just created. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you all. And let's turn on the previs. So there's our cloud, and we need to now make sure it has a material on it. So let's create a volume material, drop that on there. Now we're getting a little bit closer, and I want to look at this in the render view. So we're going to hide everything else in here. I'm just going to disable this for now. And let's make sure this, enable that. Unpause this. And we'll just take a look at this cloud. And some things with the volume shader that I've learned with doing clouds is you need to, if it's looking too thick, you can obviously play with the density and stuff. But if you want it still a little bit thicker, it's important to play with the, hopefully I say this right, attenuation. I can't say it properly. Bring this down, and that will make it feel a lot more cloud-like. So you're not lowering the density, but it just makes it feel like there's a lot more within that cloud right there, like lights bouncing around a lot more in there. So then what I like to do is if it's still not quite feeling like it's blending, another thing I will usually do is add a little bit of emission. If you bring that emission up, that has, in my experience, helped quite a bit. So that's essentially what I did with this other file. So I'm gonna show you what I did with this one, and we'll just look at it right here. Make sure this has the right, there it is. So there's another cloud I created pretty quickly, and you can see how easily we were able to make some nice looking clouds relatively fast. And then of course we just create a point array and we do a scatter. And within this scatterer, the other thing I love is that you can add multiple VDB files within here. So on the scatter, if I just come in here, we have our first one in there. I can just grab this new one as well, and we can just increase the probability of that and make this one 50 as well. So now we're going to have both the clouds scattered within here to get some variety. And it's just a super fast way to create some awesome clouds using Houdini with Clarice. I feel like is such a powerful combination. And then after that, if you, what I like doing is creating a volume box, and you can actually start getting some nice volumetric rays popping through the bottom of this as well, which I love doing if you're on the underside. So just a lot of power. And I love being able to be really creative with the way I can use the volumes in here, and even just duplicating these and moving them around to however I would like to sculpt my image. So I do everything for the image, like where the camera is. I like setting up a camera and then moving things around and seeing where they fit best. But this is just such a wonderful way to work as an artist and feel like you're not being limited by the software, and you can move quickly and you can make iterations a lot faster, which makes your work better. And so it's very exciting for me to be able to look at volumes this way and clouds and know what I'm going to get at the end. That's
awesome, man.
Thank you.
Very, very cool. Well, we definitely have some good questions for you from the chat. So, and yeah, I'm very excited about clouds right now as well. So yeah, first question, can you tell us about the specifications on your computer that you're using? How many graphic cards, memory, processor, etc.?
I don't know all the specifications, but I do have 4 graphics cards. This thing's my Frankenstein. So I have 4 graphics cards. I have 2 980 Ti's and 2 1080 Ti's. So yeah, that's what I have. The side of my computer is ripped open with all these cords right now, just so I could get it to work. But I'm just ready for Angie, and be able to use the power of the GPUs with my CPU.
Definitely. I think a lot of people are excited about that. Okay, so the next question, do you use Clarice for personal work or only for commercial?
I use it for both. I love making, again, it's the freedom to be able to create really quickly and iterate fast. And so for my passion projects, I'm always using Clarice now. It's my go-to. I'll bring all my scenes over from Houdini or Cinema 4D, into here to light and render and to scatter things. So I'll set up some basic geo in either, again, Houdini or Cinema 4D, and then I kind of take it all the way in Clarice, where I'm doing my materials, everything else, I bring it in. And I love that with Houdini, I've done destruction, I've done water simulation, and I can bring it over and it just works, and it works really fast. So it's very exciting and empowering. I'm not constantly being like, okay, now I need to create another proxy and I need to like downres this. And so I don't worry about that anymore. It's just take what I need over into Clarice and it works. So yeah.
Very cool. That's one of our taglines. It just works. Okay, cool. So how long did it take you to learn Clarice, and how does the learning curve compare to other packages like Houdini?
So I feel like the learning curve for Clarice is not bad at all. I feel like the interface is super easy to learn. And I would also suggest people go use the Discord. There's a Clarice Discord. I'm constantly asking questions, and the community is amazing. So if you guys ever have questions, go in there, ask questions. Everyone is always like totally willing to help you out, and they don't make you feel dumb. It's just a great place to learn from other artists, and you get to like rub shoulders with some of the greatest artists. So it's super awesome to be a part of that community and just grow as an artist. So the learning curve for me hasn't been super bad, not bad at all. It's been easy, I feel like, and it's been fun. I think that's the biggest thing. It's been like, once I realized what I could do, it's just like super fun and exciting. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we call that the Clarice moment. Once you have
Yeah.
the aha moment with Clarice.
Yeah.
And the Discord is amazing. There's so many people on there that you have no idea they work for the top studios, in the world, or they create your favorite artwork and this kind of stuff. So definitely, if you aren't on the Discord, get on the Discord. And even Sam, our CEO, is on there, whether you like it or not. Okay, one more question. So does Aaron use a render farm or use his computer for renders, and any tips on the rendering workflow?
So I'm just using my own computer, my own home desktop. And the way I've been learning more and more about Clarice and optimizing for your final render. And I've learned a lot about breaking your image up into groups, doing either foreground, midground, background, or I will render, like create a separate path tracer or ray tracer for just my volumes and just my geo, or specific geo that needs its own specific attributes in the ray tracer. So it's good to kind of break it up and then into groups. So you're doing multiple groups, you're grouping those, and they're all using their own ray tracer, and you're just tweaking those settings within each of that. And also looking at your AOVs and seeing where you need more or less samples, because sometimes you'll have way too many samples for something you don't need. And so it's making sure you're optimizing for your final render is super important. And just understanding groups, I think, has opened up and sped up my workflow as far as renders.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Aaron. And everybody be sure to tune in next week for our Behind the Magic, the full version, and see more of what Aaron's up to and what magic he's creating. So thank you so much, Aaron. We're very excited to have you on today and excited for next week too. And we'll move on to the very exciting next part with Angie.
Well, actually, I was actually going to ask Aaron a question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So Aaron,
Yeah.
Lost track of myself there just a little bit. Are there any features that you're looking forward to coming up? Like clearly you're hitting Clarice pretty hard, so I guess you've used Clarice 5. Just anything you could mention that you're really enjoying now or looking forward to in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I've really loved the geo lights. All the new updates have been amazing, and it's always exciting to see the innovation and things that are moving forward. And just like everyone else, Angie, I'm itching to get my hands on Angie and use that. I can't wait till I can unleash. I feel like what my computer's built for. So I'm just so excited for that and for the future of Clarice and what other things they're going to bring to the table. So yeah, there's a lot I'm looking forward to.
Right on, man. I mean, I'm looking forward to that as well. I mean, of course, I see a little bit more than the average user, but even I cannot wait. So look, that's a good question. I am not the person to answer that question. So let me see if I can reach into the internet here. And I'm going to replace Nina. with someone who I think could have some answers for us. There he is. So Sam, can you read me?
Yeah, I can read
Okay,
you
perfect.
loud and clear.
Do you have any questions for Aaron before you answer his question about what's going on with Angie?
No, I was really, human. I mean, your demo reel is really awesome. It's actually the first time I see it. I mean, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really cool work. And yeah, I'm really excited to have you on board in the Clarisse community because your work is stellar and
Thank you.
that's really cool. And yeah, so speaking about Angie, don't worry. It's coming. It's coming. It takes time. It's a whole new render, but I'm gonna make an update today about it, and so stay tuned on the stream, and you'll see some cool stuff coming on.
All
Can't
right.
wait.
Awesome, Aaron. So
See you
thanks.
later.
Yeah, thanks so
Thank
much for
you.
coming on board. And then everyone who's watching, make sure you subscribe to our channel so that you can get updates on Aaron's Behind the Magic, because I promise you, you're not going to want to miss that. It's going to be amazing. So Aaron, take it easy, and we will see you on Discord, I suppose.
Okay.
Bye, man.
Bye, Aaron.
See ya.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna now present Angie, because you guys have been there was a lot of people actually asking for Angie. So let me start by sharing the screen. So I guess it should be on right now. Eric, everything is fine?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's go. So guys, I guess you won't be surprised if I tell you that Angie was basically the most recurring word in the feedback section of our surveys. So if you were on the last live event, you knew that every single time someone mentioned Angie, it was 1 month delay. So it was a joke, but obviously, but yeah, you are clearly super hyped about Angie, and that's amazing. So we are extremely excited. We have a lot of pressures, so we have to deliver, of course, and we will. And so yeah, so the idea of this presentation was really to make an update and about Angie, but I guess there are some people that are not aware about what Angie is. So here is a recap for you. So Angie is Clarisse's next generation rendering engine. So it runs on CPU and GPU. It can use both CPUs and GPUs to speed up renders even more. And just so you know, on the CPU side, the CPU renderer of Angie is actually substantially faster than Clarisse's existing one. So that's pretty cool. Not only Angie is fast, but it is also more interactive. Actually, let me see. Okay, so it was, sorry about that. It was beeping all the time. So just wanted to know that everybody could see the stream. I just remembered, wait a second, sorry, that I need to optimize for video clip so that you get the best here. So yeah, so I was saying, sorry about that. I was saying that even now it's so interactive that we can say that it is almost, I mean, it's a real-time render. So in the next slide, if I manage to switch, so, okay. So as we can see here, so that's Angie. It's rendering in simple shading mode. And as you can see it here, but it's actually the scene are ray traced at around 900 frames per second. Okay, that's not really amazing. It's all gray, but don't worry, Angie can do much, much better. Now I switch to the new previs mode of Angie. The result is super nice, and we are in real time. Here, the scene is again fully ray traced, but this time Angie is using a special integrator optimized for real-time feedback. The integrator here evaluates the real materials of the scene, but uses a simplified ray tracing lighting simulation based on customizable HDRs. In the previs mode, not only you can navigate in real time, but also you can set dress and look dev the scene in real time. That's really amazing. Imagine set dressing your cities with actual material on. And obviously, at any time, you can switch to progressive rendering, and this time you evaluate the actual lights of the scene. And it's super fast. Again, what's cool is you can, if you want full speed, more speed, you can switch back to previs, continue set dressing and or loop deving while getting, real-time feedback. And that's also great because when you set dress here, you're not bothered with any scene lights. You can see everything while having, a very good idea about contact shadows and looks and so on. And of course, you can switch back like here to progressive rendering to why not adjust your light in context of the final render. Of course, it's not as real time as the previs, but it's still super close. And we are extremely excited about that. So you guys will really benefit from all of that. Okay, so Angie also, the reason why the quality was higher is because Angie improves greatly sampling over Claris 5. So for the same number of samples, you will also get cleaner renders in Angie, which is great. The other thing that is very important is Angie is also future-proof, since it brings full support of OSL and Material X. Basically, if you never heard about Material X, well, Material X is an open source standard allowing look dev transfer between DCC and renderers. And these renderers can also be either offline or even real-time engines. So the good thing is that Material X is getting more and more adopted by more software vendors as we speak. If I had to explain what Material X is, I would say it's kind of like Alembic or USD, but for materials. In here, I just want to show you that, as you can see here, we have in the material editor on the left, all the Material X nodes that you have, and here you have all basically the texture graph that is connected to ASSM. And don't worry, we plan to make another presentation about Angie soon, and we will be unveiling more stuff, including the workflow and Material X integration. So stay tuned to our news and social medias to learn more. So as I said, since the reveal of Angie, many of you asked tons of questions, and I've created here a special FAQ to reply to most of the common ones. So when will Angie be available and will it be free? So believe me, we are super eager to let you play with Angie. Unfortunately, I can't give you any ETAs yet, besides telling you that we do everything we can so you can have it ASAP. The only thing I can tell you more is you will hear about Angie fairly soon. And as I said, you will have a deeper dive into the workflow and so on. So you have to be patient. As for being free, yes, it will be available for any customers that are under active maintenance. So it's not, a new renderer that you'll have to purchase separately. It will come with Claris. What are the hardware requirements for Angie? So for CPU rendering, Angie runs exclusively on x86-64 compatible CPUs. It doesn't run on ARM-based machines for now. And for the GPU acceleration, it only runs on NVIDIA Optix 7 compliant graphics cards. I don't have the exact hardware requirements, but I believe it should run on GTX 10 series and above. So anything that is, 2080s and 3080s and so on. Will Angie replace Claris renderer? No, but it will eventually at some point. Basically, when it will get mature enough, it will deprecate Claris renderer, and when Angie will be basically fully featured. So is Angie a completely new renderer? So not really. So here it's basically a breakdown about Claris renderer. And as you can see in here, we have what we call the geometry engine and the ray tracing engine. That is, the source of what the Claris renderer is using. And then we have Claris lights, Claris scenes, Claris materials, the layer 3D that you guys are using to render your images, and then it's plugged to the renderer that creates an image. So for Angie renderer, what's new? So basically we keep the geometry engine, the ray tracing engine for CPU and GPU, the Claris scene is the same, and what's new are basically the lights, the materials, and the layer, which is a new layer of type Angie scene, and obviously the Angie renderer. So it's not a whole new renderer, it's more like new light, new material, and a new integrator. Will existing looks work with Angie? So now, no, it won't, but in simple cases, such as, for example, converting settings from Autodesk standard material created for Claris, a renderer right now, it should translate very easily to Angie. However, things are way more difficult as soon as the material is connected to texture nodes. Angie is actually relying on a whole new set of materials and lights, as I mentioned earlier, and material can either be defined using Material X compliant nodes or fully created using OSL. Since this paradigm is completely different between, Angie materials and Claris, and the texturing system is completely different, there are no easy way to translate whole Claris looks to Angie. So unfortunately, you will have to create specific looks for Angie. Now, the other question, will Angie looks work with Claris? That's something that we really want to offer if we can. It's clearly not an easy task, but believe me, we know that it will simplify the transition to Angie, because you will create your look for Angie and be able to render in Claris, for example, or you can do some OSL texture graph or Material X, and again use the same looks for either Claris or Angie. I'm not promising anything, but if that's something feasible with a reasonable effort, we'll do it. So if we can, we'll provide you that possibility, so you'll be able to use hopefully Angie looks with Claris renderer. Do Angie and Claris lights works with each other? Not directly, but unlike materials, it should be fairly easy and simple to convert Claris to Angie or Angie to Claris lights using a script that we could provide. So that one is coming quite a lot. Is memory is a limiting factor on GPU? Yes, and even more than you might think. Be aware that GPU rendering uses more memory than what the CPU is using on the same scene. So yes, the more memory you can have on your GPUs, the best it is. Is GPU rendering faster than CPU? Well, when everything fits in memory, GPU rendering is faster than CPU in most cases. Obviously, the speed up highly depends on your GPU and CPU, as well as the general scene complexity. In simpler scenes, when material lights, geometries, and there are not that many bounces, the GPU can literally destroy the CPU. However, in other cases, the GPU is not that amazing. So there is no clear answer to that, unfortunately. But generally, GPU is faster. The thing is, I do personally find that the speed increase or decrease are kind of less predictable in using GPU rendering than CPU rendering. What I mean is, on CPU, it's fairly easy. You know that the more bounces you add, the slower it gets, but that's kind of linear. And on the GPU, that's not the case. When you increase bounces, sometimes it gets a lot slower than, having only one or two. So you will have to play with it and see by yourself. But I just want to show you about the typical speed you can get. So here is my personal dream garage. And actually, you see it's quite fast. But actually, we are in the Mary's attic. So yeah, so we have everything here on there, and we can even, you know, add the volumes, and it's with multiple scattering on, and it's still pretty fast, and that's rendering on the GPU. So that's why it's so cool, is that the type of performance you're getting here is basically what you can get today on a high-end gaming laptop. So that's really cool. So 5 minutes later, that's the kind of image you can get on the gaming laptop. And that's pretty fast. That's a full HD image. And with 10 area lights, 5 bouncies, 128 sample per pixel. So again, take these benches with a bit of pinch of salt, because that's very early benchmarks. So, but then again, if we are looking at the gaming laptop, if you are running on a RTX 2080, so it's almost 4 times faster on the GPU, and on the latest NVIDIA 3080, it's 7.5 times faster. So that's just crazy to see how much speed you can get, you know, on a gaming laptop compared to the CPU. But on the other hand, when we compare with a pretty beefed up CPU like the 32-core AMD, the speed up is not that substantial anymore. Like, still, I mean, it's still awesome to be able to render more than twice the over the CPU, but it's not like 7 times faster. And again, as I said, bear in mind that the figures I'm showing here are very early benchmarks, so and the results may vary obviously in the future, and it might depend about the scene configuration and so on. So will Angie support multiple GPUs? We get that a lot, and yes, but only if you can find them and purchase them. Thank you, miners. Yeah, thank you. So, okay, so if you have any questions, other questions, I'm available here now for you.
Sorry, my mic was off. Yeah, that looks awesome. It reminds me with the attic with the optics denoising, reminds me of what my dream was. We first got the optics denoiser back at that SIGGRAPH with trucks, where it was going to be so fast to denoise it would look almost like real time with a billion poly scene. Yeah, definitely. It's a whole new experience. I mean, we are extremely excited. So you know that at every single daily when I'm talking about Angie and so on, and I really believe it's changing the game, because it's a unbiased full path trace renderer. So that means that unlike other solutions that we can have that are real time, here you have real time performance, but you know that it will converge to the final result. So you can interact in real time, have all your lights, switch, you know, to previs and do set dressing, because you know how it is when you do set dressing, you don't want a big shadows, you know, you don't want to see your scene, but still able to understand the looks. And you know how the actual look of a material affects the scale as well. You know, that when you have an object that is in gray shaded and so on, it doesn't look as big or as small as it is. But when you have the material on, you can actually understand the scale better. So it makes better set dressing. And with new previs that is real time, you can do, you know, set dressing, even look dev, and then switch, see all the lights. Again, it's not completely real time this time. So it's not, you know, 20, 30, 60 frames per second, but it's still interactive, and you understand the lighting and you understand the storytelling. So yeah, it's extremely exciting. And yeah, we are super excited also about the Material X that is coming, because I mean, just realize what it means. It means that soon with Clarus 5, when you will export an asset in USD, you will also export the materials. So you can bring it, I don't know, you can do some set dressing here, bring it to Unreal, bring it back again to Clarisse, keep all the materials and so on. That's awesome. You see what I mean? Yeah, it's going to be fantastic, man. So Nina, I'm going to hand it over to you to see if we got any questions from the chat.
Yes, of course we do. Everybody's pumped on Angie.
Of course, of course.
So we have a couple questions regarding hardware. So first question is, and I think this actually was answered in your slides, but does Angie support AMD Radeon Pro 55XX?
It's funny, it's a live RTFM. So it's like when I am on Discord, I'm repeating myself like, you know what? I wrote that on the documentation. I just said that earlier. Yeah, of course. Right now, as I said, the GPU acceleration only works with NVIDIA, and but we are not excluding that in the future we'll support other GPUs and so on. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to come anytime soon. Others than NVIDIA, and the performance on NVIDIA right now, I mean, they are leading the GPU ray tracing and so on, so it's super fast on NVIDIA. And I know it sucks, it's very hard to get GPUs, believe me, we are in the same boat as you are, so it's extremely difficult. It's even more difficult when you need engineers to have graphics card to be able to work on Angie. So yeah, that's not easy for us as well.
Yep. So that answers the question, is Angie GPU agnostic? And so there's another question. How about VDBs with Angie?
So as I showed on the little preview here, it works fine. It's super fast. So yeah, it kicks ass. So that's, we are extremely impressed. Again, don't expect, so there are some scenarios, as I mentioned, when you have tons of bouncies and so on, that GPU tends to not be as amazing as a CPU can be, but it's still very fast. And again, it really depends. Like we have some scenes with tons of volumes and so on. Obviously, if you have the latest AMD 64 core, the AMD 64 core can compete with a GPU today regarding complex lighting scenarios. However, in other cases, the GPU destroys the CPU. So it really depends. But yeah, we do volumes really well. And actually, we do way better than Clarisse 5 today, which has been optimized over Clarisse 4. So yeah, it's a lot faster.
Great. Another question, would a workflow from Substance Painter to Angie be something tested?
So right now there is some talk going on the, at SIGGRAPH, and I know that there are going to be a lot of presentation regarding Material X. So if you can attend to, so I know there will be some Autodesk talk, side effects, Substance 3D, and I believe that we are all in the same boat. We all believe in Material X, which means that obviously any application that allows you to do look dev in Material X, you'll be able to bring look dev that have been made in other apps in Material X and also export in Material X. So what it will be completely plug and play, and that's what is amazing, because for me that's even bigger than USD, because Alembic already solved, you know, it's been a while that Alembic was there, and Alembic compared, I mean, USD compared to Alembic, it's a better version, but it's not like, oh my God, I can bring my assets in. But for materials right now, there was nothing there. And Material X is actually changing the game, because we basically finally have something to be able to transfer looks between application and keep the same look, actually the same render. So that's awesome. And that can be even for game engine. So you could do like your look dev in Clarisse and use a game engine, Unity or Unreal, as long as they support Material X, and render the same geometry and look in other packages. So that's fantastic. So yes, it's a big, it's coming.
Very cool. Well, I think the other questions were all answered. And so I think we can move on. Unless Eric, you have more questions.
I have a lot of questions, but you know, we have limited time. We have limited time on the show, right? So, yeah, if that's it, then I guess we can move on to my next part. Sam, thanks a lot for updating us all on
Cheers.
Angie. Like I said, even though I'm over here in Isotropix, Los Angeles, I can't get enough. And if anybody wants to get sneak peeks at Angie, honestly, join the Discord, because Sam can't stop sharing pictures of the F40 and the GT2000. So get on there, and I promise you, you'll see some sneak peeks from time to time. So that's awesome. So cool. I'm going to put you guys back in the ether.
Okay, bye.
Bye. And guys, that leaves me alone here. We have two more segments I want to do here. We're going to have a master class on volume. So I'm super stoked that Aaron showed you guys all about those clouds and stuff. You know, let's be honest, as a CG artist, I remember the first package I was able to do a volumetric render, and I was super, super stoked. Clarice is famous for the way that it handles volumes. So what I wanted to do is do a presentation showing you some best practices with using volumes, how to get noise out of them, the way that volumes handle sampling. And I think that by learning these small things, you can really increase your enjoyment of using volumes in Clarice, and which is already pretty enjoyable. So I'm going to turn this over to my own self in a volume masterclass presentation. So please enjoy. All right, guys. In this presentation, I want to talk quickly about volumes. First of all, volumes are very cool. And second of all, volumes can be expensive. So in this masterclass presentation, I'd like to just go over a few of the best practice rules when working with volumes so that you can have the best experience possible. Because honestly, Clarice handles volumes beautifully. So let's get started. Sampling. It's a word we use a lot, but volume sampling is one of the most important things to understand. So let's just get started there. So this scene needs a lot of help with samples. Okay, I have a noisy sphere inside a noisy box with an area light shining down, creating a noisy shadow. So let's denoise this image, and while doing that, we'll come to a better understanding of volume sampling. So the first place everyone wants to look in a scenario like this is the light sample count. And that's not entirely wrong, but it's also not correct in its entirety either. Let me explain. So let's increase the sample count on the area light to 32. And as you can directly see, the shadow of the ball on the ground is nice and smooth, but the volume is unaffected. So why doesn't this value affect the noise from the light in the volume? That's because everything that takes place inside the volume is sampled with material samples, not the light sample count. Remember, within the bounds of the volume, the material sample count is all that matters. So, if we put 16 material samples in the path tracer, you can see now that everything has been sampled, including the volume, the floor, everything. So now there is no noise on the sphere or on the ground. However, if we zoom in, there is still a bit of noise on the volume. Now, since the rest of the scene is correct in terms of material samples, it would be inefficient to just continue to crank up the material samples in the path tracer. Instead, let's dive into the volume material itself and do the change there. Now remember the basic rule. To reduce noise by 2, increase samples by 4. And since the material samples in the path tracer is set to 16, we end up with 64 samples on the volume. And now you can see that we have a smooth and nice result. So remember that a volume's internal noise is handled by the material sample count, even if that noise is seen because of a light. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is the volume surface asset type. It's something I don't see a lot of people using or talking about that much, but it's quite powerful for creating bespoke volume shapes directly inside Clarice. Simply create a surface volume node, then add any geometry you want in the surface slot. Basically, it allows you to turn any surface into a volume. So in this case, I've turned a simple display sphere into a little cloud. But what's super cool is that I can go back and change the underlying displacement on the sphere, and it will change the way the smoke volume looks. And more than that, any geometry works as long as it's closed, even combiners. So let's test that out. I'm just going to delete what I already had. Let's go back to our basic display sphere. I'm going to copy and paste it a few times. Make a few modifications. Just to build a new shape. Now simply combine both of those, create a new volume surface node, attach the combiner to the volume surface. And now the last thing to do is just simply hide both of our display spheres and our combiner from the render. And now we're left with our volume. Let's attach the shader and increase the density so we can see it quickly. So that's pretty cool, right? Given more than a couple seconds, one could create some nice clouds like this. Think about the animated attributes, think about animated caches. The only catch is that the geometry you want to turn into a volume must be 100% closed. So yeah, I hope this reminds you of this really cool feature, and I can't wait to see how you use it. All right, another thing that is a very powerful workflow in Clarice is texturing a volume's density value. I think we've all thrown down about 1 million volume boxes, but to be honest, I haven't textured the density that much, and there's some interesting effects that we can achieve by doing so. So let's do just that. Now here, I have a simple volume box where I've textured the density with a small, simple setup. For the adjustability I wanted, I put a fractal noise into input 2 of an add node, which in turn directly drives the volume density attribute. The add node is there simply to allow for the adjustment of the minimum level of density within the volume. So as you can see, as we move it towards black, the lightest parts of the volume vanish, and as we go to full white, they become more intense. The fractal noise node itself is where we can kind of control the overall look of the effect. I can increase the contrast for a stronger effect. So that's pretty cool. However, in these type of situations, there's something important about sampling that we need to talk about. So let me make a new volume from scratch so I can explain. So let me just create a standard volume box. We'll make it 20 meters by 20 meters by 20 meters. Let's attach the add node to the density, and then finally the volume material to the box itself. So as you can see, even though it's the same textures, it looks weird, right? It's kind of flat, like the volume texture is stuck to the side of the box. This is because we need to sample the texture in 3D along the length of the ray through the volume from the perspective of the camera. This is a difference between a volume box and a baked out volume like a VDB. A VDB will have a resolution. So inside the volume at predefined locations, the density of the VDB will be defined. The volume box doesn't behave like this. It is just a single box. So the only way we can generate these data is to ask Clarice to take more calculations along the ray within the volume. We can do that by setting the step mode to either count or size. In our case, we're going to leave it to count. And let's increase the number of calculations along that path from 1 to 16. Now, as you can see, it starts to appear more like the volume we had before. Think of this value like a precision. The larger this number, the more points along the ray Clarice takes into account for calculation of the look of the density of the volume. Now, these objects can be slow to render, so make sure you balance your needs of density calculation resolution with overall quality attributes. Usually 50% across the board is a good starting point. And in this case, by going from 100% to 50%, the render time is sped up by double. Now also keep in mind, like I said, there's a reason they invented the VDB. So while this is a fun method, it's best used sparingly for objects semi-far from camera. Keep in mind, we are now calculating, in this case, every ray 256 times along its path within the volume. And now if you have 256 rays, you can imagine how quickly you can get into numbers beginning with the letter B. And that's not good. So again, this is why they invented VDBs, but this is a very fun technique to use sparingly. So that brings us to the final scene, where I'm going to wrap up with a short recap of everything we've learned in one complete scene. So let's denoise the scene as it sits first, then we'll bring in a volume and work on that. So first off, let's clean up our light samples. The shadows are clearly noisy, and by adding some samples to the lights, we can easily fix that. Now that that's fixed, we can obviously tell that there is some indirect
All right,
noise
everybody.
from the secondary bounces. So let's go to the path tracer and set our material samples there. And now you can see that we've solved that problem. The final problem remaining here is simply that there's no anti-aliasing. So let's add a bit of anti-aliasing. And now you can see that our image is properly denoised, and if I bookmark these here, you can see we can toggle back and forth and see how that's come along. So now let's bring in a VDB and go from there. All right, to bring in a volume, let's just go to our 3D view, let's lock the 3D view, go into our cloud context and go File, Import Volume. I'll pick this cloud. It's quite large, so let me just scale it down just a bit. We'll kind of stick it in the ground just a bit there. It's like a nice ground fog. Let's attach our basic cloud shader to it. I'll bring that up just a bit here. So it looks pretty clean, but you can see a bit of noise here. Now, since we've already profiled our path tracer, we don't want to waste any more of those samples. So let's do this directly on the cloud itself. Let's add 64. And you can already see the result is much, much smoother. That's looking very nice. You can see the difference there. That looks quite nice. So the last thing we need to do is let's invoke some multiple scattering by increasing the number of volume path depth from 0 to 2. This will give us a more realistic result. It will also brighten up the volume because more light is bouncing within the volume itself. And that's really about it. The big trick to know is that noise you see in volumes from light shining into the volumes, that noise is taken care of by material sampling. The volume effectively hijacks those rays until they exit the volume. So while the light sample will fix the shadow on the other side of the volume, it will not fix a noise inside the volume. Hopefully this gives you a good lesson on sampling, how to get some noise out of your images, and overall how to work with volumes. So thanks for watching this presentation. All right, guys, we're back. I hope you learned something there. I think it's really poignant, especially since Aaron showed us now how to easily make clouds. I can see the Clarice community moving up into the clouds here pretty quickly, and then we're going to run into volume sampling issues. So make sure you watch and rewatch that to get all the information on how to best sample your images when dealing with volumes. So Nina, did we have any questions?
It looks like we don't have a lot of questions in the chat, but feel free to chat them if you want, guys. 3, 2, 1, ask some questions.
I think Sam wants to say something.
I will actually add something about the presentation regarding the texture density sampling. So yeah, as you said, Eric, it's something that you should use on a case per case basis and not all the time, because then it can be super slow. Because the thing is, we don't know density at that point. So we don't know, I mean, there is a texture, but to know what's the density at a specific point, we have to evaluate it. And as you said, the number of samples you put is basically the number of times we are sampling the texture along the ray. And when you have one ray and you put 256 times, and then that ray bounces, then you have to, again, 256 times. And just imagine that that's for just a ray that is continuing. Then for shadows, it's the same. So if you have 16 or 512 shadow rays, then that's 512 multiplied by 256 times, multiplied by the number of bounces. So that's billions of rays at the end for an image. So that's cool, but as you said, VDBs have been invented for a good reason. So you basically bake, it's basically like baking a texture. So a VDB is a 3D baked texture. So just imagine that you have a very complex procedural graph and you want to bake a 2D image for each channel. A VDB is basically the same, but applied in 3D.
Yeah, I think it could be nice for distance fog. Maybe you don't have to put cloud assets all the way to the back. Maybe you can use a box and put some density and make something look nice.
Yeah, that's a Swiss knife, basically. So it's always cool to have multiple tools so you're not stuck. What's worse in production when you're basically virtually stuck and you need something quick and to push the pixel, and that's a solution like another. But yeah, use it if you know what you're doing. And don't complain if it's slow, because that's going to be slow.
Okay, so that's going to be the new answer if we have questions about this. Not read the manual, watch the video, and stop complaining. Okay, well that's gonna end up that presentation. So I'm gonna send you guys back to the ether. You'll be right back after the next presentation. So I don't know what it's like in there, guys, but I'm gonna put you in. Have fun. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys, and now we're alone again with just me. We have one final presentation to give you, and let's call this the C5, Clarice 5 service pack update. So as you guys know, we put out a lot of service packs. We're just continually bug fixing, adding amazing new features, fixing some new bugs, adding amazing new features. But trust me, you want these features. We just released Service Pack 3 last night. So if you haven't already downloaded it, make sure you download it after this presentation. And after this presentation is going to show you some of the coolest new features that have been added via these 3 service packs since the release of Clarice 5. So enjoy this, and I hope you find some of these new features really helpful. Great quality of life features, and one kind of bonus that I think is pretty much game changer for every Clarice artist out there. So enjoy. So almost all object interaction within Clarice happens via the attribute editor. And over time, the attribute editor has gotten longer and longer. So in Clarice 5, we introduced tabs, which cleared up the attribute editor quite a bit. But now, through the service packs, we've introduced some new ways to interact with the attributes, which we hope will make life in the attribute editor even better. So the first thing you can do is in Clarice 5, you could toggle the visibility of groups on and off. What's new is that by using control click, you can turn off the visibility of all other tabs while keeping the visibility on the one that you're just clicking. Just simply control click, and it will hide all the rest, leaving only the main one that you have selected. Now, going hand in hand with that, if you want to solo an attribute, you can simply middle click. So let's middle click on the geometry attributes. You can see here that now we have this soloed. And if you just simply middle click again, we go back to the rendering tab that we have selected previously. So soloing is a great way to pop into and out of tabs that you may not always need to use. And finally, we have a new way to interact with attributes. So let me select my light here. And let's go in here and open our lighting, visibility, and let's do weights direct. You'll notice that this is a hierarchical list of things. We have lighting, then we have lighting visibility, and then under lighting visibility, we have weights direct and weights indirect, and shadows and path depth. So let's say that we've made a bunch of changes to our attributes here. Let's turn that off. We can just change this. First of all, you can see everything's gone into a highlighted white, and we have these little check boxes here which indicate we've made changes. Now, something new we can do is you can right-click on a tab group here, and you can reset either just the ones in there. Let me undo that. Or you can reset recursively, which will undo all of the attribute changes down the hierarchical chain here, which means that I can leave these two here in lighting and go down one level into lighting visibility, and now I can either reset that one, let me undo that, or reset recursively. So this becomes a very powerful way to manage this stuff as well. Go down to the bottom one, and of course we can delete those as well. So I hope these new attribute editor features kind of help you have a more pleasant stay in the attribute editor. So now let's move on to the next feature. So we've also made some nice quality of life improvements to the image history. So now, in addition to being able to either remove or clear the entire image history, you have the ability to lock or unlock a current image, as well as bookmarks. So as you know, the image history is defined in the preferences to a user-defined number of images. So that means as you're currently rendering, it's possible for one of your favorite images to drop off the lists. So with the lock images feature, all you simply have to do is click on this, all you have to do is click on this little button here, and you'll notice that it stays locked. And as the images drop to the bottom of the list, any locked images will just stay at the bottom. It will not be deleted. Of course, you can press the same button to unlock it. So sometimes you can want to compare back-to-back images that are not next to each other in the image history. That's where the bookmarks come in. So let's compare number 18 to number 13 by just selecting the bookmark toggle up here. And then by simply hitting the up and down arrows, I can simply toggle between those two images back and forth. You can see that I can still do page up and page down. Up and down arrow then toggles. Of course, if I want to add another image to the bookmark, you can use a hotkey, Shift B. And now I should have 3 images in my bookmarks. Of course, to turn them off, you can simply do that. And when they have bookmarks on, you can see there's a nice little star, so you're reminded that it has a bookmark. So hopefully that gives you a nicer way to compare images in the image history. Of course, you can always expect some rendering improvements. So I'm going to hit Shift Page Up to go back to my latest render. And now if we go to the path tracer and select our tone mapping, you'll see that we have the option to affect all your color AOVs. If you're rebuilding beauty of a tone mapped image, this is of course integral so that you can get the same exact result. So we've greatly improved the speed of rendering for materials with an opacity under a value of 1. The geometry is now also clipped when the value is 0, which will also make it disappear from AOVs such as depth or normals. Now I have to remember to tell everyone that it is very important to disable MIP mapping on stream map files and map files when used in clip maps or opacity. And also, the AOV store result is now affected by the material opacity. Now the next feature I'm super excited about, we're calling it light contribution. So it is now possible to control how a light contributes to shading points using the contribution attribute on any light. The contribution color, which can be textured, multiplies the illumination coming from the light at the shading point. Now because it can be textured, it's super powerful when using scopes. Now the next update I'm very excited about. It is our new hair fiber material and you're gonna love it. And let's go into a little bit more in depth with that right now. All right, this next feature has me really excited and it is our new hair fiber material coming to you in Clarice 5 Service Pack 3. Now this new hair fiber material is going to replace the old physical hair material completely. This new material is faster, more accurate, energy conserving, WYSIWYG, and artist friendly. And of course, as you can tell by my voice, we are super excited about it. Now, one thing I love about this material is that it has very few attributes, yet you get a lot of control for versatility. The material is melanin based with a layer of dye. Now, melanin is the pigment that gives hair color. Now, there are 2 main types of melanin. The eumelanin for dark brown and pheomelanin for red hair. In the hair fiber, you control the melanin amount, and then the concentration of brownish melanin over reddish melanin. So as you can see here, when we increase the melanin redness, we get a more reddish pigmentation of the hair. So at the end of the day, melanin is what's giving the color of the hair. Without it, the hair is a dielectric, pretty much like a strand of fiberglass. So here is a close-up of the material applied to hair with the roughness set to 0. Now when setting the roughness to the default values, we basically get white hair. And if we increase the melanin amount to 10%, we get blonde hair. And please note the slight saturation of the fibers. And now, if we increase the melanin amount to 50%, we get dark blonde hair. At a value of 85%, we get dark brown hair. And with 100%, we will get black hair. It's actually simple. The concentration of melanin pigments in the hair is what's defining the absorption of the hair. The more melanin, the darker the hair. Now here are some renders with different settings of melanin amount and redness. Using only these 2 attributes, it is very easy to get all kinds of combinations of natural looking human hair. By reducing the melanin amount even more, we get even blonder hair. And here is the impact of melanin redness set to 85% on blonde hair. Using melanin amount and melanin redness, you can easily get red hair, as you can see here. In general, the less melanin, the lighter the hair. To get blonde hair, you need to have very little concentration of melanin. Since the hair is absorbing very little light, you need to add a lot of glossy transmission bounces to get realistic effects. So yeah, light blonde or red hair can be a lot slower to render than dark hair. Also, not only the number of bounces brighten the hair, but also brings in the saturation. When reducing the max bounces to 3, you can see we lose illumination and saturation quite a bit, but the render is twice as fast. So, it's more easy to see here in this image. However, note that reducing the number of max bounces to 3 makes the render twice as fast. As I said, the curse of the ginger hair continues. The next thing I want to talk about is hair dye. The new hair fiber material supports dye. Now this is very handy to dye hair on top of the base natural hair color and get very realistic results because you're doing it in a realistic manner. Now in this render, we can see the natural hair color. The dye is set to purple, but the dye mix is set to 0, which is why we can't see it. When we set the dye mix to 100%, we can see that the dye fully replaces the natural hair color based on melanin. This means that we can use gradients, for an example, to get realistic results. And here, I've added just a small gradient so you can see how the hair is more realistically transitioning from the natural hair color to the dyed hair color. And you can see here that by changing the gradient, we can really easily get a realistic look. So we're super excited about this hair fiber material. Of course, we're already working on tons of video content, tons of tutorials to show you soon to help you get up to speed with it. But for now, refer to the user guide for more information and have fun creating some amazing hair effects. So what do you think about that? That's pretty cool. I love our service packs. I saw someone in the chat said, that's my feature. Yeah, I mean, keep it coming. Quality of life features in the attribute editor are a must-have. I'm using the solo mode all the time now. So I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to take a Q&A, see if Nina has any questions for us.
Yes, we do have some questions. So there was one question. Hey guys, please tell us with Clarice 5 what hardware is better to use with Clarice? More pressure on GPU or on CPU? What is better? Few nice GPU or powerful 64-core CPU, for instance?
I'll let you answer that, Sam. It sounds nice to have a few nice GPUs. Sounds like a nice option.
Yeah, so today, I mean, Clarice is not really using GPU besides for the viewport, the GPU acceleration. So I would put my money on the CPUs because, I mean, the bigger, the best CPUs you get, the faster Clarice will get, period, not only renders, but everything else, because we try to multi-thread everything that we can, so loading and things like that. So your experience will greatly benefit from it. And even for the future, Angie is CPU and GPU. So that means that even if you have a 64-core CPUs, you will still benefit from, Angie will still benefit from it. So right now, I would say CPUs, and in the near future, you will devise with the GPU. So yeah, CPUs, go ahead, full blast.
All right. So there was something, the new hair is looking great. Is that just for still frames or can it be used on animated models too? Does the material need to be placed on an imported Alembic model?
You want to reply, or Eric, or?
Hair, actually. I mean, I'm assuming that it can be, when I've done hair, I bring my hair from Exogen. That's how I've been doing my hair. And if the splines are animated, I suppose that the hair instance would be animated as well. So.
Yeah, the hair material is basically specialized for hair. So there is a catch. You need to know that you need to make sure that the hair is rendered as ribbon, because it's actually simulating dielectric inside. So if you have like double-sided, then like a real volume like tube, it doesn't work well because it's supposed to be on a flat ribbon. And but besides that, yeah, it works amazingly. We are extremely excited about the new hair material, and it's super intuitive. What I like about it, it's extremely easy. Like as you showed, Eric, you create your base natural pigment or using melanin, and then eventually you add dye, color, and mix. And if you want, you can, for example, for animal, and you don't want to mess up with the melanin, you can just take the albedo of the fur and directly put it on dye, and you have super photorealistic results. So that's really cool. The hair material is really cool. Nina, there was a question on also regarding volumes and sampling.
Yeah, from Jeff.
Yeah, from Jeff. And so actually was asking something about what's the best practice between increasing material sample count on the volume versus the sampling on the volume itself. So the sampling on the volume itself is really for the density, as Eric showed. So the more samples you put, the finer it will sample the density. So really to reduce noise, it's actually the volume material sample count that you need to adjust.
Yeah, sorry guys, my volume was down because I'm having a slight construction issue next door here. But yeah, I was just saying that I use XGen hair, and if you animate and cache that out, of course you could put the shader on it; it'll be fine.
You were not following because we moved towards volume now. So
oh,
anyway.
sorry.
No, it's okay.
I just was muted before. Sorry, I'll get out of the way. Nina, go ahead and give some more questions.
Okay, I think actually that might be it, unless you guys want to ask a couple more questions before we wrap up here. Let's see here. Yeah, it looks like we're good, guys.
Oh, so there was another question.
One more. The new hair shader. How do you get random color variants for each strand?
Yeah, so we will bring some. We are going to make a few tutorials on the hair. It's actually very simple, but there will be a couple of tutorials showing you how, the basics, and then how to create the same type of setup that we could see on Eric's presentation with the white hair, for example. We have actually added on the curve utility node a special random value that basically gives a random black and white value for each curve. So that way you use that to drive variation on your material. It's very easy.
All right. So one more question, wondering how it would be used without physics, modeling / animation from other apps. Would it need to be done outside of Clarice?
Yeah, you're going to need to, like I said, I do my hair with XGen. It's just what I'm comfortable with. Yeti. I don't know where Yeti stands currently on Clarice 5. I believe I've heard something from them recently. I'm not sure. But yeah. Or Houdini, I suppose you could make hair there as well.
Yeah, and export to Alembic.
Yeah, export to Alembic or USD or whatever you want and bring it in.
Yeah,
and
yeah, definitely. And it's rather easy. I think it's not directly straightforward using XGen on Maya.
It's not.
You have to. Yeah,
I have some scripts.
Yeah, it's not like one-click export. And also, I think that it doesn't export the UVs, at the root of each curve directly. So there is some bit of fiddling going on there, but using other packages, I think that it's easier.
Yeah, and we'll figure all this out, and that's what the tutorials will be for, coming out really soon. So we'll make sure to figure all this stuff out for you guys and get some nice hair workflows done. So stay tuned for that.
Awesome. Well, don't forget, guys, you can rewatch this. This isn't just a live event. You can come back and rewatch it, rewatch your favorite parts, share it with your friends, and make sure that you, if you haven't signed up for the raffle yet, make sure you go to live.isotropix.com in order to register and potentially win a license. Oh, wait. Okay, ZBrush hair format, that's also supported. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Just making
thank
sure.
you. Yeah, that's actually a good reply. We forgot about that. We support the ZBrush hair format, so you can directly bring the hair from out of ZBrush, and it's plug and play. So
very cool, guys. Well, thank
you
so
Kai.
much.
Yeah,
thank
you.
For joining us again for another live event. Don't forget to tune in, subscribe, so you get to notified for all of our events. We also have the full version of Behind the Magic releasing next week. Really happy to have you guys here, and we love our Clarice community. And thank you again.
See you
Thank
soon.
you all very much.
Bye.